PvE difficulty. PvE difficulty is an interesting topic, and it's something that, you know, unfortunately, there's a lot of baggage that goes along with this. And I think that difficulty can really be expressed in different ways. Sometimes it's just, you know, you have to be down to this, you know, 99% performance or nothing. And at other times, difficulty can be in terms of solving a problem, you know, finding a creative way to solve a problem within the game. Like, let's say you go into a PvE battle in Star Citizen, a mission, and it says, oh, there's going to be one caterpillar and 2 Cutlass Blacks defending it. And you have to go in, you have to take these things out. Now, you might look at a situation like that and say, oh, well, if I had a constellation and I had it fitted out a certain way, absolutely, I can totally do that. And some people might say, hey, you know what, I can probably do that with the Vanguard, and I can do that with this ship and that ship too. When your difficulty is expressed as, you know, different ways to solve a problem, like here's the sum total of your problem, you know, and here's all the parts and pieces that you have. How do you put those together in order to, you know, basically solve that puzzle? That is a very good way to express difficulty in a game, in my opinion. Playing up to that, like that 99% level, and it's just like this or nothing, that is, unfortunately, I feel that that is a good place to put PvP difficulty because it's players versus players. But in PvE difficulty, I think that that is often, you know, just a terrible solution, because that leads to players saying, okay, I need to be able to do this thing, and this thing absolutely rigidly. I have to do all this. What's the mathematical solution to that? Oh, this ship is best for that. Therefore, this ship is best. And I prefer the idea of, you know, going into that space battle in that same situation that we're talking about, a caterpillar and 2 cutlasses, and someone says, oh, I'm going to do it in a constellation. I would love to see the guy who comes in and says, well, I'm going to get my friends and I'm going to do it in a Starfare. I'm going to get my friends and I'm going to do it in a Reclaimer. I'm going to do it in, you know, a Caterpillar. It may not be as efficient, but I can still get to the same rewards that, you know, the Corsair pilot or the Constellation pilot can get to. I'm not locked out of that. Now, Star Citizen, to its credit, appears to be fully heading down that route. It seems like Star Citizen is very much aimed at delivering, you know, that kind of, there are many ways to skin a cat, so to speak. You know, there's all kinds of ways to kind of solve these problems, but we are still dealing with the very beginnings of PvE in Star Citizen. You know, this is just, you know, the start, the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. There may come a time in the future where, you know, CIG introduces interesting Vanduul ships or interesting game mechanics into the live game that may require a certain thing. Like, let's say, for instance, instead of, you know, the next pirate invasion of Stanton, we have a Vanduul invasion of Stanton, and they show up with a kingship, and CIG's like, well, we want you guys to be able to, you know, knock that kingship down, but, you know, in order to knock that ship down, you're going to need, you know, A, Polaris, or B, an Idris with its railgun, or the Polaris with its torpedoes to disable the shields of that kingship. Now, game developers sometimes fall in this trap when they introduce new things or new items or new tools into a game. They sometimes fall into the trap of creating content that requires you to have that tool, that class, that ship, that capability that may exclusively only exist on those items, ships, or classes, or players, you know. And that's a very easy trap for game developers to fall into. And what unfortunately can come with that is this sense of, well, now I have to go and do that thing. Now I have to go and play that, I have to go fly that ship. I have to go and, earn that capability. And I think that while it does kind of give, developers a way to kind of, make this new thing and everybody's excited about it and everybody wants to try it, it also takes away from the problem solving of the situation, where I think that, a large portion of that fun really resides. It's not in so much as just kind of going and doing the thing, but it's also in figuring out, how are we going to solve this problem, right? How am I going to make this work? Like, let's say, for instance, right now we're jumping around on the surface of Yella with an MT. We've got an exposed cockpit, so there's going to be certain issues that arise from that. Now, someone might say that for a mission you have to go from a landing site, whatever landing site, to jump town and back, and maybe it's a journey of 100 kilometers. And that, this is something for, a high-end reward in some mission. Something that's not inconceivable in the game. Now, if you had, let's say, like a ballista or a Nova tank, you would probably say, oh, well, we've got a nice, safe interior to hide in. We can go and we can do that mission. And so the Nova tank comes out, the ballista, you have the Hercules. You can now drop these things off. You can do this really cool new mission. But you might say, oh, that because of, the MT is exposed to the environment, the MT can't really, carry a lot of cargo or carry a lot of equipment with it. That kind of puts the MT out of the equation. And I think that it would be much more interesting to give players, ways to solve that problem for the MT, to make that mission work with the MT. How am I going to get the MT? Let's say there's limited fuel. Okay, how do I operate the MT? Is there a throttle limiter or some kind of, setting that I can manipulate in order to give myself the capability to cross like massive distances with the MT that may normally only be possible with something like the ballista or the Nova tank? Is there a different, drive system or power core that I can use that limits my fuel usage, that still allows me to kind of go that distance and achieve that thing? That's kind of what I'm talking about. When we start to introduce things like the Nova tank and like the ballista, there's obviously going to be a desire for content geared towards those things, right? It would be pretty terrible if you all of a sudden you got your Hercules, you got your Nova tank, you're here, you're ready to go, and there's nothing really suited to use that vehicle for. That can be a real bummer. And the temptation is to create content that requires that thing, Let's say you go to a bunker and there's AA turrets all around the bunker, but they'll also attack ground vehicles. And the Nova tank, it's got that huge cannon on it. It's got that great range. And so the temptation would be like, oh, you're going to need a Nova tank in order to go in and, destroy those turrets. But what if you can take the MT and you can fire its missiles at the ground targets from further away? Or maybe you can get in closer and get behind a rock and you can kind of work, solve the problem that way. Maybe you don't have to take out the turrets. Maybe you just have to get the MT close enough so that you can proceed in on foot and not get attacked by the turrets. Now, some people would say, oh no, that's not why the mission is there. You want the Nova because you want to be able to blow up the turrets. But in doing that, in creating that kind of exclusivity where you feel that, oh, you need to have the Nova tank, it's not just a question of excluding people from being able to do the mission unless they have that thing, but it's also you're excluding yourself from the problem-solving element, which can be so much fun and so interesting in so many games. It's one of these things that I realize it makes game developers nervous, because when they leave too much leeway for players to solve problems, you can lead to unintended gameplay, and like, well, we didn't intend for you to be able to go in with a shoulder mounted thing or C4 charges and just blow up the turrets in a Jeep, because that's just too easy. But I think that that's kind of misrepresented. I don't think that it's too easy. I think it's because it requires brain power to figure it out. It requires people to be creative, and I think that expression of creativity, you should be very, very reluctant to stamp that out. Now, of course, if that mission rewards 10 million credits, and so players are just going like, oh, well, let's just go buy some C4 charges or a shoulder-mounted bazooka, and we'll solve this in 10 minutes, or we'll just get close enough with a Jeep and then walk right in because the turrets won't attack us. The temptation would be to stamp that out, and that's a problem with the reward. I don't think that's a problem with, the players or how the players are doing the mission, because the players are using their intelligence and they're expressing their creativity, and ultimately I think that's what makes games more fun, is when we have those avenues to kind of express ourselves that way, rather than just let's go in brute force, it's the only solution, and do it that way. That's kind of, it's the way that Star Citizen appears to be being set up right now, but I'm a little bit worried that, when something like the Nova tank shows up finally, or the Ballista, that we're going to kind of build content around those things that are overly exclusive to those things.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.